Chapter 9. Akana returned to docking bay A-13 22 hours after she had left it. Her face pale, her clothing dirty, her eyes dull.
They aren't here,
She said wearily as she climbed into the skiff, waking Luke from an unplanned nap in the pilot's couch.
We can go.
Then, without saying anything more, she tried to crawl into the bunk and draw the curtain against Luke. But he followed close behind her, unwilling to settle for so little after so long.
Go where?
He said, catching the curtain with a hand and throwing it aside.
Did you find anything?
I found enough.
Akana said, turning her back to him.
I'll tell you when we're outbound.
You said you'd come back for me. I'd like to see the scribing, and I'd like to see where they lived. There might be something I can pick up.
I'm too tired.
She said.
You're a mess too, but I'm not keeping score.
Luke said.
Look, I paid to have the shower cleaned. I think you should go make it dirty again, and we'll talk after. You'll feel better, no matter what comes next.
To Luke's surprise, Akana allowed herself to be directed. She lingered a long time under the water, longer than Luke himself had. When she emerged, she was standing a bit straighter, with better color in her face and a little life in her eyes. But it seemed to Luke that whatever strength the shower had returned to Akana went directly into stubbornness. She flatly refused to take him back out into the city, or to talk about what she had done and where she had gone.
I want to sleep,
She said, standing at the foot of the mounting ladder, with her soiled, dark cloak draped over one arm, the sun glistening and the last drops of water beaded on her bare shoulders.
I'm going to sleep, or I'm going to fall down where I'm standing.
I'll hire a speeder.
No!
She said sharply.
We're finished here. I didn't miss anything, and I can tell you everything I found when I'm rested. Just take us away from here. Lift ship and jump us a few hours toward the core. I should be human again by the time you're done doing that. But right now, I need to be alone. And I need to sleep. And that's what I'm going to do.
Brushing close enough past him that he caught the scent of soap on her hair, Akana clambered back up the spindly ladder into the skiff. Frowning resignedly, Luke walked to the bow of the skiff and started his pre-flight inspection. By the time he made his way up the ladder into the flight compartment, the bunk was sealed as tight as a cocoon, with as little clue to what would eventually emerge. He slipped back into the pilot's couch with a sigh, switching off the data pad and tucking it under a tie-down.
Mudsloth to Talos Tower.
Luke said.
Departing A-13, requesting clearance to orbit.
Talos Tower. Please hold, Mudsloth. There's traffic ahead of you.
Luke glanced at the chronometer and shook his head with a wry expression. They had been on Atzeri a few minutes short of a full day. His reply was far more Luke than Lee Stan.
Talos Tower copy. I have the traffic on my sensors, and it looks from here like a slow accountant making an extra pass.
He said.
Do you think it'd help him along if I rattle the walls with my thrusters while I'm waiting for him to count to 1?
Clearance to lift came a few moments later, but Luke was not greatly surprised to find that the final bill, transmitted to him as he cleared the atmosphere, still assessed him for 2 days' berthing.
Free traders.
Luke thought with disgust.
Thieves with business cards.
Just before jumping the skiff out from Atzeri, Luke remembered to retrieve the report on the Mudsloth from the New Republic ship registry on Coruscant. It was much shorter than the report on Star Morning, as befitted a ship that Luke guessed had probably spent most of its life grounded. The little ship was impractical for anything more than the occasional businessman's vacation or off the space line's sales call. Most of its value was as a status symbol, something a have could talk about where the have-nots could listen in envy. To judge by the skiff's lines and detailing, Verpine had very consciously traded comfort underway for a design that looked fast while sitting still. But Luke's only interests were the ownership records and the most recent entries in the traffic log. After Akana's behavior on Atzeri, Luke had developed a renewed interest in independent confirmation of the things she had been telling him. He still wanted to believe her, but was no longer sure that he could, and one way or another he had to know. Luke also found he had developed a renewed curiosity about the things Akana was not telling him. It had occurred to him, for instance, that almost every time Akana spoke about her past, she spoke about her life on Karatas, not Lukaszek. Knowing how hungry he was for information about his mother, he had expected Akana to be generous with anecdotes and remembrances about the part of her life she claimed to look back on most fondly. But such remembrances had been few, and Nashira had figured in even fewer. It made Luke wonder, and wondering led to doubt, and doubt to suspicion, a highly undesirable state of affairs. So Luke was relieved at first when the initial screen of the report informed him that NR 80-109399, a Verpine Adventurer Model 201 Production Group E, belonged to
Akana Norenpel, being an adult resident of Kolfin, a settlement belonging to the autonomous state of Karados, under the authority of which this registration is granted.
And the recording date for the articles of registration was recent, not quite half a year past. Turning to the traffic log, Luke found more welcome news. The only planetfalls recorded for Mudsloth, since Akana had taken ownership, were at Galkus and Coruscant. And Galkus was near enough to being on a line from Karatas to Coruscant that a stop there en route needed no explanation. Curiously, though, there was no record of their departure from Coruscant, nor of their stops at Lukaszek, Tyr, or Atzeri. The latter omission Luke could explain by the update cycles. There must not have been time for the routine transmission of data from those flight control centers to Coruscant, or for the addition of that data to the master record. But the former omission was puzzling. Luke's cloaking work as they left Coruscant should only have concealed their point of origin from watching eyes and discouraged curiosity about any out-of-trajectory alarms at flight control. But as far as Coruscant was concerned, Mudsloth had never left. The skiff had never requested clearance to lift to orbit, had never requested clearance through the planetary shield, except they never could have left without it. And shield passage required not only that the skiff answer a transponder interrogation, but also that ship registry verify the ID. It was impossible to imagine how their passage had gone unrecorded. Luke wondered what would happen when the Outworld updates arrived and Mudsloth was suddenly in two places at once. Then, just for a moment, he toyed with the idea that both places were really the same, that they were still on Coruscant, perhaps even still in his hermitage, and some elaborate deception was underway. He quickly rejected the idea as too extreme a solution to the mystery, but it left a worrisome question in its wake.
Just what was Akana capable of? What were the limits of her power?
May I cloak us as we leave?
She had asked. And he had not thought to question it.
What had she done? Something that could hide them completely from the best planetary security the best engineers could devise.
He realized he had missed a pattern.
How had she gotten into his hermitage without his knowing it? How had she gotten past the security droid and into the communal on Tyr?
All the questions pointed toward the same answer. Some gift of deception, illusion, or concealment that went well beyond what he himself could call upon.
She can pierce my projections,
he realized.
I wonder if I can pierce hers. I wonder if I can even tell when she's using one.
Distracted by such thoughts, Luke almost overlooked the other surprise in the report from Coruscant. It waited for him in the section on ownership history, and fell under his eyes while he was wondering why, if she had such a talent for concealment, Akana had needed to buy a ship at all.
You could have stowed away on any ship at any time,
he was thinking.
You wouldn't have been trapped on Lukaszek. Stang! You could have stolen the price of passage, even the price of the ship.
Then he noticed that the sole prior owner of the skiff was a man named Andres Pell, and that the transfer category given was
Class 3 non-taxable, inheritance by marriage.
He rose out of the couch and turned to stare at the closed curtain screening the bunk.
Just how did you buy your freedom?
He thought at Akana.
And what else are you keeping from me?
Akana hibernated, or hid, for nearly 10 hours. But rather than frustrating Luke's curiosity, her absence redirected it. For the last 5 hours of her isolation, Mudsloth drifted in real space on the fringe of Atzeri's Oort cloud, with only the cold methane ice comets for company. With all his inhibitions about making inquiries behind Akana's back gone, Luke made full use of the time, his credits, and his priority access codes. From Karatas, he requested any information available from NewsGrid, political or police records on Akana Norand Pell, Andres Pell, and Talsava. He sent the same query to Coruscant's Criminal Records Office and Citizen Registry, and to the home offices of both the Coruscant Global News Grid and the New Republic Prime News Grid. From the New Republic Reference Service, he requested a quick report on naming conventions on Lukaszek and Karatas, thinking he might parse another lead from the names in hand. A second request to the same source asked for 500-word excerpts from all matches on the keywords Falanasi and White Current. After a short debate with himself, and despite the pathetic and sensational inaccuracies of Secrets of the Jedi, Luke also contacted an information broker on Atzeri and paid 100 credits for a search on the same keys. He also requested a current terms and conditions brochure from the Chief Librarian's office on Abroa Sky. The library computers there were the only resource offering both a greater variety and a greater volume of records than those held by Coruscant. But Abroa Sky's generosity with its planetary treasure was limited. To protect against theft of the library and to provide the resources needed to maintain it, accessing the records meant either going to Abroa Sky or hiring one of the library's own trained contract researchers. In either case, Abroa Sky was not a resource one turned to for quick answers. The official language of New Republic record-keeping was basic, and everything held by Coruscant was kept in one of several readily searchable data specifications. But the Abroa Sky Library was a collection of primary documents in 10,000 storage formats and uncountable languages. The most complete general index covered only 15% of the library's holdings, and all the specialty indexes combined added only a few percent to them. Those were the principal reasons why the brochure, which Luke received within minutes of requesting it, as the first response to any of his inquiries, reported that a normal single-part library search was averaging 8 days. The waiting list for terminal time was holding at 15 days, and the backlog for contract researchers had climbed to 70. Discouraging as those numbers were, Luke dispatched a command control message to R2 and 3PO on Yavin 4. instructing them to go to Abroa Sky and search the library on his behalf, as they had done once before. The only request he made, that was refused outright, was for the Fleet Office's daily tactical briefing memorandum, also known as the Trouble Map, a compendium of situation reports from all the various fleet and base commands. Unlike that aboard his E-Wing, Mudsloth's Hypercom wasn't military-rated, and there was no persuading the intelligence section to send a White Star file to what they considered an unsecured receiver. Luke thought about calming Admiral Akbar directly to ask his appraisal of the trouble in Phylax. The news digest Luke had picked up on Otzeri was almost as sensational and unbelievable as the Jedi document. But doing so promised to invite questions Luke wasn't ready to answer, and possibly force a decision he wasn't ready to make. Instead, he chose to contact the public information offices of both the Senate and the General Ministry. He asked for the official record of the past 20 days, hoping he could read between the lines well enough to know if it was time to head home. Then he lowered the lights in the flight compartment, stretched out on the deck behind the control couches, and closed his eyes. All his pending requests required patience, from minutes to hours to days, but just reaching out had left him feeling better about his circumstances. Even if some of his efforts returned nothing useful, the next time he and Dakina talked, he expected to be in a much stronger position.
Sorry as I am to say it, what I have to have now is reason to trust you, not just reason to want to.
He thought.
If we're going to go on any farther together, you're going to have to start trusting me.
Prompted by a sensation like a feather tickling somewhere inside his skull, Luke became aware of two things at once: that he had fallen asleep on the deck, and that he was being watched. He turned his head in the direction of the sensation and opened his eyes. He found himself looking directly at Akina. She was sitting on the edge of the bunk, hands folded on her lap, her hair bed-tousled.
"Hi,"
she said.
"I'm sorry I monopolized the bunk for so long. I didn't mean to do that."
Taken aback by her apology, Luke pulled himself up to a sitting position.
It's all right,
He slurred.
You must have needed it. You looked like you did anyway back at Talos.
She nodded.
"About Talos, there's some things we have to talk about.
She said.
You've been very patient with me, and I've been terribly unfair to you. You deserve to know what's been happening with me."
Having had his own opening speech preempted, Luke could find nothing more to say than,
Go on then, I'm listening.
Akina nodded toward the foredeck.
You have some messages. You'll probably want to look at them first.
Eyeing her quizzically, Luke moved to the co-pilot's couch and browsed the list of waiting replies. There was an acknowledgement from Streen on Yavin 4, which Luke skipped for the moment. He also skipped the press folders from the Senate and General Ministry, which were irrelevant for the moment. The New Republic Reference Service had responded with a short précis on naming, ending in the messages,
Search key Falinasi, not found. Search key White Corrent, not found, a single term. Search key Falinasi plus White Corrent, not found.
It was the same with the response from the information broker on Otzeri, an apologetic note and an offer to apply half of the search fee to Luke's next request. With increasing agitation, Luke skimmed through half a dozen more replies from various agencies and companies on Karatas and Coruscant. All were singularly uninformative. A few dates, a few facts that fell into the category of vital statistics, and several no record and not found messages, with a pair of request denied rebuffs scattered among them.
Let me tell you what your messages say.
Akana said gently.
My full name was Akana Norand Goss, now Akana Norand Pell. I was married on Karados to Andrus Pell, a man 36 years my senior. Andrus died a year later, and I inherited this ship and a few thousand credits. His obituary says it was an innocent death, and no one official seems to have taken any notice of his passing. But you wonder if I might have both married and killed him to escape from Karados. And no matter who and where you asked, there's nothing at all to be found about the Falinasi.
How do you know?
He demanded, twisting around to face her.
Did you read my mail?
No, I didn't need to.
You knew I was going to check up on you,
He said.
Oh, I thought you would eventually. I rather thought it would be sooner.
So you checked yourself, and you knew how little I'd find.
I checked for myself.
She corrected.
You're not the only one looking for pieces of your past.
He sat down on the edge of the co-pilot's couch.
Why are there so few?
He asked, the accusatory tone leaving his voice.
Talsava and I lived in the shadows on Karatos. We came in unregistered. We lived in a part of Chofin where people come and go without notice. When Talsava left, I became one of the Invisibles. I owned nothing, did nothing that put my name in the identity records of the occupation. The only time I ever lived above the line on Karatos was the last 2 years. The years I was with Andras.
No one questioned who you were or where you came from.
No. The old records were seized by the Empire, and the occupation records were destroyed by the Liberty Movement. Everyone was given a fresh start. I took a name in the local custom for women. Given name, mother's name, father's name. But it means nothing anywhere but there. Any time. But then.
So there's no reason for it to be anywhere in Coruscant's records.
Or Lukaszek's. Or Tears. It's not that there are other names behind which the records hide.
As far as the bureaucrats and census takers were concerned, you didn't exist.
She smiled.
On Karatos, the census is of property and the owners of property.
She said.
When I owned nothing, I did not count. When Andros took me, I was his property. Now that I own this,
She raised her hands to indicate the skiff.
I am a person.
Luke nodded slowly.
I guess that all makes sense the way you explain it.
He said.
But something else I learned still doesn't have an explanation. The traffic records say we're still on Coruscant, and I'm starting to think that we're still going to be there no matter how many systems we visit.
Inexplicably, Akana giggled.
Did your tracking report mention a visit to Golkus?
Yes,
Luke said.
on your way to Coruscant.
And did it say why I went there?
No. I didn't think about it much either.
Luke admitted.
I guess I figured that, it being your first trip in the skiff, there was either some little problem you needed fixed, or you just didn't like being alone out here.
Well, the second is true. Absolutely true. But so is the first. The problem I needed fixed was the ship's identification transponder. I told you, we leave no trail that an outsider can follow. There was someone on Golkus who could help with that.
Someone? Altering ID profiles is no mean trick.
His name would mean nothing to you but could harm him.
Akana said.
I believe he once worked with, or for, Talon Card.
How do you know him?
He came through Karados once, years ago.
She said.
When I heard why, I arranged to meet him and to do him a favor. But the price was still dear. I paid him with most of the credits I had, plus favors I had collected from others.
So, he changed the profile. What, to some other adventurer? So, some other ship left Coruscant.
Oh, he did more than change it.
Akana said.
If that's all I'd asked for, it wouldn't have been quite so dear. No, he put what he called a smuggler's kit in the transponder.
This ship is black boxed?
Luke stared wonderingly.
I guess that's what it's called. Every time we jump, the profile changes to something that looks legitimate, but isn't. If I'd had the price, I could have bought bootleg IDs instead of counterfeits.
And I suppose the system doesn't activate until after you've jumped out from wherever the work was done, so the trail doesn't point back to this gentleman.
Luke frowned.
Stang, the days we've wasted. We could have jumped out from Lukaszek or Tyr.
I encouraged you to.
She protested.
I'm the one who asked you to disable the interlock.
Yeah, but you neglected to mention that it'd be safe to do it.
Luke grumbled.
We blast out of one system under one ID, tiptoe into the next under another, and no one connects the two. Very sweet. This fellow on Golkus is going to do a brisk business.
He chooses not to.
Akana said.
I had the impression he considers himself retired. He says he's very selective about who he'll do this kind of work for.
Well, I guess the fact he's on Golkus and not on Talos backs that up.
Luke said, shaking his head.
Why didn't you tell me?
I did.
She said.
Just now.
That's a cheat.
Luke said.
Yes.
He said.
The truth is, I wasn't ready to trust you with that information. I didn't really know whether I might need to hide myself from you at some point. I have a lot to protect.
But you're ready to trust me now.
If I don't trust you, I'm completely alone.
She said, a hint of an old sorrow in her eyes.
And I can't do that anymore. I never wanted to, and now I just can't. I can't hold you out when what I need is to be close to someone again.
Akana.
Secrets are like walls, aren't they? They separate people. And I've been alone behind these walls for as long as I can bear.
She said.
I'll teach you to read scribing, Luke. And if you want it and you allow me enough time, I'll teach you the rest. You will become one of us in full measure, an adept of the White Current. You will finally walk your mother's path.
Luke understood the significance of what he was being offered.
Thank you.
He said in a voice drawn tight by emotion.
Even the chance that I might find her. I want to bring as much of her into my life as I can. I want that balance.
But you still have questions.
She supplied.
Yes.
Please don't hold them back because you don't want to seem ungrateful. Ask them.
Her words captured the flavor of his reluctance exactly.
Is telepathy one of the adept skills?
She laughed lightly.
Are people now so afraid to look closely at Luke Skywalker that ordinary attentiveness seems remarkable?
Luke's smile was rueful and faintly embarrassed.
Perhaps.
They should not be,
She said.
Now ask me the real question. Something else in those reports, I think.
Something that wasn't there.
He said.
You were right. There wasn't a word about the Falinasi. Not on Lukaszek or Tyr or Coruscant or Adzeri. Not that word.
You must wonder whether there really is a circle.
She said.
Or if this is just a fable spun by a lonely madwoman to lure you away with her.
She showed a small smile, inviting him to demur.
I just expected there to be something. Rumors, myths, legends, superstitions. It's hard to understand how a people as powerful as the Falinasi, with as long a history as you've suggested, could leave no trace of yourselves.
Because we have made it so.
She said quietly.
Or are the traces there and I don't know the right names to ask after? What did you say?
Because we have made it so.
She repeated.
When such traces appear, we remove them. But there are not many to remove, because we have not made it our purpose to leave a mark.
Luke nodded slowly.
Not to conquer, Not to convert, but to find the place where one belongs.
Yes. If you understand that, you understand the most important truth of the current.
she said.
If you let it, it will carry you to where you need to be, for the lessons you need to learn, the work you need to do, and the people who need you in their lives.
Nodding, Luke slid across to the pilot seat.
Speaking of which, we've been sitting here a long time. We should get going,
He said.
but I need to know where.
Jetepatan.
She said.
The world is called Jetepatan.
Luke turned away toward the controls.
Well, you've stumped me again. I'll have to look that one up in the navigation atlas.
Luke,
What?
isn't there a question you haven't asked?
Luke thought for a moment. There were many he still could ask, but the urgency had left him. He believed she would answer them all in their turn.
Yes, one.
He said finally.
Did you love Andras?
That is not the question I expected.
Akana said, and bit her lower lip.
Yes, I loved him. He held me lightly. He found something in me that he thought was beautiful, and he never tried to change me. And he was never cruel. It was like being a child. Like being a child should be. I wish that it could have lasted.
Curiously, Jetepatan wasn't in the skiff's navigational database. Since the spelling was so odd, he pressed Akana about it.
It isn't a basic word.
She said, calling forward to him from the refresher.
It's the basic transliteration of 4 mystical glyphs in Hakig. Jah, the immanent. Teh, the transcendent. Peh, the eternal. And Ton, the conscious essence. Only Ton may be written out in full. The Hakig consider the others too sacred. The spelling I gave you is the convention that respects that belief.
You could have just said, I'm sure.
He said with mock grumpiness.
Next time I will.
The failure of the skiff to identify their destination forced Luke to make a query to Coruscant, and Mudsloth to linger a while longer near the Oort cloud. When the Astrographical Survey Institute returned the requested coordinates, they caused Luke's eyes to widen.
A long way.
He said, zooming and scrolling the nav chart across the primary display.
And we can't go there directly, because that'd put us on the wrong side of the borderlands for the whole middle third of the trip.
Which would be unsafe, I take it.
There are interdictor patrols all in through there.
Luke said.
But that's okay, because it's too far to go in one jump anyway. We'd be 20 hours over the skiff's endurance. I'm going to have to pick a stopping place somewhere along the way.
He waggled a finger over one section of the map.
Somewhere in here. That'll keep us on the right side of the line.
I'll leave that decision up to you.
Luke drew a small square around their destination and zoomed the map into a more familiar scale. Legend marks and other identifiers popped into view.
Farlax sector.
He said under his breath.
What?
Talking to myself.
Luke said.
I'm tired. My mind's already lying down in the bunk.
He zoomed the map another order of magnitude.
Not just Farlax, Kornak cluster.
He realized with a troubled frown. Pulling the datapad from the tie-down keeper, he brought up the news abstract and searched it for Jetepatan. It was a relief not to find it listed among the worlds involved in the fighting. Still frowning, Luke next turned to the PIO reports still waiting in the message queue. Skimming, he found confirmation for the key element in the news reports. Some colony worlds within Kornak had been attacked and their populations exterminated by the Yavitha. Some colonies were given by name, some only by the origin of the colonists. But Jetepatan was not mentioned, nor were the Hakig. He zoomed the navigation map once more and studied the geography of Cornox Cluster. Jetapatan lay in the interior, out of scanning range for his ship on the edge of the cluster. If something had happened there, Coruscant might not have any way to know.
Do I tell her? Do we wait here until we know more, or do we go?
He thought. As he plotted an alternate course, one that would take them as close to the border as possible without crossing the line, he allowed himself to consider the horrendous possibility that the Yavitha had fallen on Jetapatan and exterminated the Falanasi. It was possible that he and Dakana had set out on their journey too late, by no more than a few tens of days. It was possible that Nashira had been alive that short a time ago and was now dead. Akana emerged from the refresher, and Luke pushed the datapad back in the keeper as she came forward.
I can tolerate this uncertainty. She can't.
He told himself as he blanked the secondary display.
We have a good line to Utharis,
He said to her.
a Tarek world just inside the border. We should be able to take care of the skiff there with no problems.
Have you ever been there?
No.
Luke said, sending the coordinates to the autopilot.
You?
No.
Can't get a better recommendation than that.
Luke said, suddenly feeling as tired as he had pretended to a short time before.
When we get there, I'll buy you a souvenir hat.
He did not wait for Akana to settle in her couch. Thumbing the hyperdrive safety and throwing the actuators forward, Luke bent time, stretched the stars, and hurled the ship toward Utharis. Lying on his back in the bunk, Luke stared up into the mesmerizer that covered the bulkhead above the bunk. The thin panel offered several holographic depth illusions, intended to combat ship-bound claustrophobia, an array of hypnotic, sleep-inducing light and color patterns, and several other displays of a purely recreational nature. Playing before Luke's eyes was the slowly spinning disk of a great spiral-armed galaxy as viewed from outside, 1,000 light-years above the galactic plane. Luke had seen such a sight once before, from the Alliance's medical frigate, at the deep rendezvous point they had codenamed Haven. The sight took him back. That had been after the debacle at Hoth, after the escape from Bespin. He held his right hand, the bionic hand, up before his face and flexed the fingers, remembering, trying to remember. Even more than leaving Tatooine in the Falcon with Han and Obi-Wan, it was his encounter with Vader there in Cloud City that divided his life into two halves. Before that, Luke had been little different from any of the Empire's many casual victims, uprooted from his home by Imperial brutality, recruited into the rebellion more by rage and tragedy than ideology. The blaster bolts that killed Owen and Beru had destroyed one future and sent him tumbling into another, but it had seemed a matter of chance, not destiny. His meeting with his father, though, had laid a greater weight on his shoulders. Not until he was hanging from the power gantry, hearing the voice from behind the black mask, speaking unthinkable words, had he understood what was being asked of him. Not until then had he known that he and no one else could carry that weight. Looking back to that moment was looking back to the moment he became himself. Looking back beyond that moment was almost impossible.
You can hardly see 21 from 34,
he thought. The soft click of the curtain release interrupted his introspection. A moment later, Akana slid the sections apart.
Somehow I knew you were still awake.
She said, showing that now familiar quick smile.
What did I leave you wondering about?
He shook his head.
I was just thinking about when I stopped being a kid, and how long ago it seems.
What if you live to be as old as Yoda?
He smiled ruefully.
Then I'll probably laugh at myself for feeling the way I feel right now.
It's not the time. It's the responsibility.
She said. and the smile left her eyes.
Luke, I'm sorry to intrude on you this way. But there was something I didn't tell you and should have. And I didn't feel right letting it wait.
Luke sat up far enough to prop himself on his elbows.
Okay.
She sat down on the wide sill at the edge of the bunk where the curtain track ran.
Even though I held back some things you might wish I'd told you, I've tried to always tell you the truth.
She said.
But I did lie to you about Etseri.
Luke sat up a little farther.
Oh,
I took you to Etseri under false pretenses.
Akana said.
The circle was never there. You were right about Star Mourning. The writing at Tyr said to go to Jeddah-Paytan.
then why?
I had to.
She said.
I had to try to find my father.
Luke looked hard at her for long seconds, but his words were surprisingly soft.
Did you think I wouldn't understand?
I was afraid of what I might find.
She said, dropping her eyes.
I was afraid of what you might think of me if my father turned out to be someone even I can't respect.
Well, I understand that too.
Luke said.
I think Leia's been afraid to look for our mother. Maybe if I were Leia, I would be too.
Why?
Luke considered for a moment before answering.
Her memories of our mother, few as they are and little as they've told us, are very precious to her. They're a child's memories, innocent, idyllic, and she's protecting them.
Protecting them? From what?
Reality,
Luke said.
there's nothing Leia could possibly learn about Mother that could improve on those memories, and a lot she could learn that could damage them. Leia's never had to consider our mother in her full complexity. What kind of relationship did she have with Vader? Why did she have his children? Why did she give us up? When you start letting yourself ask questions like those, you risk getting an answer you don't like.
But it's different for you.
I don't have any memories to protect.
He said, with a hint of wistful regret in his voice.
I just want to know who I come from, what else I carry inside me. I'm not as worried about being disappointed.
He smiled wryly.
Though if I discovered that Mother had something to do with turning Anakin Skywalker into Darth Vader.
Oh no!
Akana said, looking up and touching his hand reassuringly.
I promise you, Nashira is nothing like that. Please believe me.
He nodded.
I do.
That's so important to me, and I'm afraid I've destroyed it.
She said, her voice quivering with anguish.
I didn't want you to have any reason to doubt me, any reason to question coming with me.
She smiled sadly.
So of course I lied to you. I'm so sorry, Luke. I knew better. I knew I would never be able to deceive you.
Luke folded his fingers around hers and squeezed.
Did you find him?
Yes,
She said, and her eyes began to glisten.
in a way I did. I found him in Trasley District. He's the very minor chief of a shabby little tribe, puffed up with flattery and brain-burned on Rachna Blue. He didn't remember my mother. He didn't know he had a daughter.
She bravely tried to smile.
These little pieces of us that others hold inside them. Some know their value, and others are careless with them. When you find Nashira, I know that she will have more to give you than Jorab Goss did me.
You didn't have much time.
Luke said.
You can go back.
No, my father is dead.
She said simply.
Someone else lives in his body. I will never speak to that person again.
Luke could tell that her composure at that moment was simply an exercise of will. There was a tremble in her hand. Her eyes were tear-bright with loss, and her skin was hot with her misery. But she would not let herself ask him for anything but forgiveness.
I understand that too.
He said gently.
I know how that feels, to have that door locked, and only an empty space beyond. I'm sorry. I know it hurts.
He was my last hope for a key.
she said, unable to keep the pain from her voice.
They're both gone now, my mother and my father. If we don't find the circle, I'm always going to be alone.
Words no longer offered any hope of comforting her, and her need was too acute to ignore. With a gentle tug on her hand and a meaningful, confirming look, Luke invited her into the bunk with him. After a moment's hesitation, Akana climbed in through the gap in the curtains and curled up against him, nestled in the crook of his arm. Before long, she was sobbing quietly, her body shaking beside his. But the tears felt to Luke more like welcome relief than distress. Saying nothing, he held Akana close and tried to wrap her in a blanket of comfort. The galaxy turned like a wheel high above them, all its tumult far away, and for the moment, forgotten.